Hi, friends. It is the end of week 13. So we're dealing with our algorithm today. Just as a reminder of what's upcoming, what your expectation is, you have discussion question. Please make sure you do that due by Sunday. And you have one core assignment called login and registration. We did that in class. That recording is here. So I did build off of a previous one. The only thing we didn't do is we didn't create a user. But if you remember how we create a user model, that's all you have to do is just create a user model. And then you kind of use the code that we had for register and log in to do exactly that. That's all your assignment is. And then as a reminder, for the belt exam, you can come with a working login and registration. So if this is working and you have it all done, I would encourage you to make sure that, I can't remember if the assignment, let's look, actually shows that you need to have like bcrypt. I believe you do. Yeah, so password confirmation, at least 8 characters, valid email. We've done all of that. Does not already exist. We did that. And so we have all of this information. The only thing maybe we didn't do is a logout, at a functioning logout page, which I think that would actually be of value right now. So I'm just going to run in to this. I do think it would be a value. So I'm going to build that. It takes 5 seconds. So I'm going to do that. Cool. So let me activate my environment. And my project, and then we can look at it real fast. Here's what we created. We're at localhost 5000 where I can create a user, and I have a register and I have a login. Now, I think I had, I think it was m@c.com. I can't remember if that's it. Yeah, okay. So, let's see if that was correct. We know that's correct, but there seems to be an error here that we can hit later. But what I want to see is if I look here, great user login, where m@c, cool. So that worked. So we know that everything's good there. What we might want to do is look at this code and say, okay, how do we have our first name? So I want my user, right? I want it to say, welcome Marley or welcome Charlie or whatever my user's name is. And if I go to MySQL Workbench, we'll be able to see what my users' names are. So that way we can sort of kind of do both of these. And then we'll do our algorithm. I just want to make sure you guys have all the information. But if I say select all from users, so we have Charlie and we have Marley, my 2 faithful dogs. And so I wanted to say welcome Marley. So let me close out of this. Sorry, I'm just going to close out of this so that way it's not so confusing for you guys. I was just in one level too high. That way we just have our code that we want to deal with. Perfect. Cool. So this is just our code that we've got, our entire project. Now I'll start my terminal one more time. Cool. So what I wanted to do is if we follow this login, kind of this functionality here, right? Where we are taking the email, we're saying get user by email, right? And first and foremost, if the user does not, or if the user equals none, which if we go to this get one by email, we have this, if the length, this is just a little bit of recap, but if the length of user, which user is a list of values that's being returned, if that's none, then that's saying that doesn't exist in my database. So we're handling that. We then check our password against bcrypt, the password that the user put in, the password we have in our database. And if it's not correct, it says email or password is incorrect, redirect back to the form, basically. If not, and this is where session comes in. If neither of these are true, right? Meaning that this one is that our passwords don't match. So if that's not true, that means that they match and that this was none. If that's not true, that means we got something back. So if we get to line 45, we're saying we got a user back and the passwords match, which we can then say, okay, that's a valid login, right? What we do is we take that ID because what we're getting back, user, is giving us the class instance of that user. If there's something back, it's giving us that. So we're taking that, and that class instance has all of these attributes, right? It has an ID, a first name, last name, email, password, created at, and updated at. And so we're saying, hey, I want to take the ID, the unique identifier of my user, and I want to put it into session as user underscore ID. Then I'm going to redirect to user dashboard, which right here is that we have this def user dashboard where we say, data, we grab that ID from session. And what we're doing is we return render template user dashboard.html. So we're going to our HTML page of user dashboard, but then we are grabbing our get user with games. And so I need to kind of go back because I restarted it. But if I go to m@c.com, and I log in. Okay, so we know that that works, right? Because if it didn't work, we would have gotten an error, but it should say welcome Marley. So let's go see what we did and why that's an issue. This user right here is what I'm passing to my user dashboard HTML. And it is this guy right here, this get users with games, which is the select all from users join games on users ID equals games ID, where users ID equals 6. If we go here, yeah, 6 is good. Okay. I was confused. I was wondering why, because we deleted everything. Okay. So we're good. We are able to grab, this worked, right? Or else we would have gotten an error. So we're assuming that it worked. So we're assuming that user is my Marley object, my Marley user object. So here in my user board, right now it just says welcome, and then it says user.firstname, but that is not giving me what I need. And it should. So what would you guys do to problem solve this? Because everything looks fine. User right here should be that, and we should have user.firstname. That should be fine. So what would you guys do to problem solve here?
We already checked the controllers, right?
Let's go check. My controller looks fine. And the thing that I would look at is
Your
this,
SQL.
yeah, this get with user with games ran where ID equals 6, right? So it's getting that, and we didn't get an error. So what would you guys do? Any ideas?
That's the what's the word? The placement of that user, right? The 6. Is that what?
Yep, I just checked. Marley's ID is 6.
Hmm.
So it should say Marley. Kevin, any ideas on your end?
This, I think I'm kind of losing track of what's going on here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we're just trying to get my user who's currently logged in. I don't think
Every
that that would
everything's
cause.
written. I feel like um
I too feel like
I,
everything's written
weren't we doing
correctly.
an algorithm today?
Yeah, but I wanted to show you log out. But this is your part of your core assignment, so I think that this is more important at the
Okay,
moment.
okay.
I just went
um
over your core assignment and there was one little piece of log out that I want to make sure that you guys know, and then redirecting to the page, which is what we talked about. And I just wanted to make sure, I don't think I talked about it and it doesn't work now. So I felt like, we could do the algorithm for the last half.
yeah.
Um,
Um
what I would
what's
probably
the right
do
uh-huh, go ahead.
is say that this looks like it works, and we got a status code of 200. Now we don't talk about status codes really, but they're these HTTP status codes, like 404 is not found, 400 bad request, 200 or 202 typically is like, okay, you made a request and that's fine. So now I would look here and say, well, what are we getting back? What do we say? Get user with games. So I'm going to look and say get user with games. User equals this. User with games append. And then we are returning user. So what I would probably do is I would print user the first name. Let's see what it gives me. Nothing.
That's so weird. Usually something prints. Whether it's an error or
Yeah. First off, I'm going to see what is even going on.
and you said you fixed it. It's in the right folder when you're running it, or else
Mm-hmm.
you would have got an error anyway.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm looking at is after everything's done, we get
How many cores? 7.
we get, I would think that we could print before we return user. So I'm wondering if nothing's happening, right? We're not getting any value. And I put a print statement here, meaning that it's going to go through all of our games and grab all that information. Now, here I've got this if len results equals 0. Return none. So because I'm not printing anything here, what that's telling me is it's not getting there. Right? It's not getting to line 63, because if anything, it should print, in method, but it's not doing that. But we know it's
But,
running this.
but wouldn't it stop somewhere to tell you that there's something wrong
Well,
before it got to the
what
print?
do we have in this method that would make us exit before this?
Mm,
What do you guys think? Before this print statement, why would it exit this method? What line would make it exit? Looking at this whole thing from 44 down to 63. Let me ask a better question. What's the one thing that makes a function exit early before it is finished running? Once
Break.
so a break will do a for loop, so close. But what's the
Oh,
keyword that a function sees and it's done running once it hits that keyword?
return.
Yeah. So here we've got a return, but we're not getting here. So if we're looking at my code, I'm getting it here,
Yeah.
right? So what that tells me is that what I could do is I could do this. What I would do just to confirm my suspicion, but I can almost guarantee. I'm going to say print in method. And if I refresh, I'm going to come here and now I get in method. And what that tells me is that I don't have a user, or sorry, let me backtrack.
You
This
don't
is
have
going to
any
join.
games.
This is going to join everything. But I don't have a game associated to a user, right?
Correct.
Let's see if a left join changes that. Okay.
You didn't sign them out anything. Poor dog.
I know. We have it. Well, remember we dropped the schema.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So this is something that's really important when it comes to join. So I'm glad that we found this error. When I just use a normal join, just like this, right? If there is no relationship, meaning that this user has not created any games with it, and I use join to combine the tables, then it is just going to run this. It's going to say, hey, there's no combination, and it's going to give me back none. Or it's going to give me 0, right? There's nothing there. It's just an empty list. When I do left join, this is going to assure that even if a game has not been created, it will still bring my user. Or in this case, if there was, if it was a game, but there wasn't a user associated with it, it would still show my game. It's going to get all of that. And so by doing a left join, now, even though this is all none, which we could handle this later, like in an error handling sort of sense, I'm still at least getting my user. So you notice it's not saying in method, because even though there is no joining, there is no combining, because there's not a game in my database that's got a user ID field that matches the current user's ID, or the user ID that, I'm passing, in this case, Marley, whoever's logged in. So even though that doesn't exist because I did a left join, I can still get my user. When I just do a normal join, there has to be a relationship there for it to give me anything back. Does that make sense?
Hello? Hello. Can you hear
Yep.
me?
Yeah, I can hear
Say
you
it
now.
say it one more time.
Yeah. So when I just had it as join, just a normal join, what join does is it attempts to combine two different tables, right?
Correct.
And maybe I'll show you this here. This might be a little bit easier to understand. I'm just going to say 6 because I know it's 6. Okay. This is for Marley, right? When I return and say join, it is looking for a relationship within my database where the ID of a user matches the user ID of a game. If no said relationship exists, it doesn't give me anything back. It says, hey, that doesn't exist. That doesn't matter, right? Like nope, there's nothing to join because that relationship, that foreign key matching with the primary key does not exist. Therefore, I have nothing. If I say left join, this is me saying, hey, even if that relationship doesn't exist, give me what you have. So in this case, it still gives me back my user because there is a user whose ID is 6, but it has null values, meaning that there's nothing there because there's not currently a relationship that is existing between a game and this specific user.
Okay, I got it. I get it
Yeah.
now.
So I would advise you, at least for right now, while you guys are still learning, use left join so you don't go crazy like I did for a second, because then you'll still get your user. Because now my code works as expected. Oops. Where we can still get Marley. Now there is none where I could say, we could do something in my HTML that maybe says, if none, um, I'd be curious what the length, because we're doing all this game data. Is I'm going to say user.games. Remember, user.games is my list of games associated with the user. Now I'm going to print I want to print this, and I just want to see what that looks like. So if I refresh, I still get Marley. I still get 1 because, oh, it's just saying none because there isn't anything. There's just one instance. So it's just saying none. So what I could do, and we don't need to, this is not necessary, but in here, I could have had a check that basically said if null, then, it's nothing. Or in my HTML, I could say if null, then it's an empty string, or do a ternary operator. But it doesn't matter for right now. Cool. That's all I wanted to show you is how we can get that information to the front end. Maybe we can build that out next week for our build prep. Handle that edge case. The other thing I wanted to show you is how we can log out. So it's fairly simple. We don't need to do anything on our back end, so we don't have to do anything with our database, right? So I can actually close this model. I just need to be able to log out. So I've got my register or create user, login user. What I want to do is I'm going to, and this will just be faster. I'm going to say app.route user/logout in the same way that we had login, we have logout. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say def logout user. And then all you say is session.clear. Now on the platform, it shows other ways that you could do it. I think it's .pop, or you could just basically say that that's nothing. But either way, you can, there's a couple different ways that you can do it here. Trying to find where, because I know that it talks about sessions somewhere. Or the different ways to kind of log out. Either way, works great. So this is session.clear. So that's just going to clear the ID that's what we're using to say, are they logged in or not? And then we just redirect back to user. So I could have a button on my user dashboard, maybe up here at the top. It's going to be this. And so when I come here, of course, we go here and let's log in again. Oh, cool. Now I have this log out and I log out. Oh, it's trying to go to slash logout. But we called it something different, right? I think I called it user slash logout.
I think so.
users.
Yep.
Yep, user slash logout. So I'm gonna say slash user slash logout. Let's go back, refresh. Cool. Now I log out and it takes me back to my login. And Marley's no longer in session. So that's all we do. That's all you have to do for logout is it's the easiest one. You just create your route, you do session.clear, and then you redirect back to wherever the login and reg form is, whether it's a different HTML or yeah, you redirect to whatever route has that. So in this case, it's user, and it takes us to my user form. Cool. Any questions on the logout feature and the left join?
You just make it look so easy. Nah. No, you're good. No questions at the moment.
Okay. Would you guys rather do an algorithm or would you rather try to figure out how to do the none, handle the none portion?
Are you
I have a
talking about as the chart as that because it pulled out none?
Yeah, so see how like if I say m@c.com, and I say password, and I come here and this all says none. So, yeah, this all says none.
Well, whatever you can squeeze in there, I'm sure we're all gonna take it and soak it up.
Yeah, we can either do that on Tuesday when we're talking about
Okay.
the belt exam, or we can do that today. And if we do it today, then we forego the algorithm. If we do it Tuesday, then we can do the algorithm. We got about 25 minutes left. So what would you guys prefer?
Either or. I don't have a preference. Because as
Yeah,
Kevin?
I don't
for
really
me,
care.
it's as long as you upload the video and we
Yeah,
can reference back to it, that's you know, that's the main thing. For me
sure.
at least.
Okay. Well, then let's do, I think that'll be good for class on Tuesday. So let's go ahead and close this and then we'll do an algorithm together. So that way we can have some fun there. Okie doke. So we've got a little algorithm. I'll kind of clear all this junk out. Cool. I've got a fun little algorithm. It shouldn't be too complicated, but again, it just sort of builds on the pieces of what we've been doing, how we can handle things, and just kind of getting more familiar with loops and certain things like that. So this one's called multiples of three, but not all. So we need to use a for loop. So, and I would say create a function that uses a for loop, print all the multiples of three from three or minus 3,000 to 0, skip minus 3 and minus 6. So I'm going to say create a function that uses a for loop. Okay, there we go. Starting with some pseudocode. Who wants to go first? And we'll just kind of go back and forth. There's only two of us. Two of you.
I was like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
We only have 2 people.
Yeah, there we go. So who wants to go first?
Let's see, multiples of 3, but not all. Create a function. So, let's see. Create a function that uses a loop. Print multiples of 3 from 300 to 0. Skip -3 and -6. So I guess the first one, we're gonna write a function.
Yeah.
with trying to think. Do we need a parameter?
Yep,
Oh
yep, right. We actually don't, right?
no, yeah, because you're doing a list. You got all these.
Yeah, because we have it hard coded. We don't necessarily need that. So we need to create a function. All right,
Mhm.
Kevin, you're up. What are we gonna do next?
Hmm. We're gonna have the print function.
We will have the print function, but what's
I
our
mean,
next
not right.
step?
Yeah, no, I know. So multiples of 3. So we're going to have that modulo, something that involves that modulo operator where we've got um
Yeah, we could do that.
multiples of 3, but not create a function that uses a for loop. So we're gonna have um
I'm just running
and
things that you're saying that we might use.
yeah. So I kind of have some things that we're going to do in the future, but I don't quite have, everything like in a sequential order, like first this,
Sure.
then this. Um,
Sure. I would say we're gonna create a function, and then within that function, we're gonna do a for loop, right?
yeah, definitely.
A loop with the range because it already has the like the numbers you're gonna work with.
Yep. Yep. You're exactly right. Okay. And then what are we gonna do?
Create a for
Well,
loop.
So we created the for loop with range.
Yeah.
And so now we're gonna iterate through. And as we are in our for loop, what are we gonna do? I'll tab over to represent in our for loop.
So we're going to go create a for loop with range.
we'll need a
So
condition. Oh,
Yeah. What's the conditional statement gonna be?
we're gonna check to see. Well, hold on. Let me think about this. I know we got to do a conditional statement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're.
I
Hmm.
think it would involve the conditional statement would involve the -3 and the 6.
Okay.
Or if print multiples of 3 from -300 to 0.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be one of those kind of regressive things where we do a for loop, where we go back, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because we have our start, our stop, and our step.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go, so the stop would be at 0,
Okay.
and then this, and with the step would just be a default of 1.
Okay.
So we wouldn't need to write our step. We have our start and then our stop.
Yep.
And then, so, and then the conditional, that would involve the -3 and the -6. So if x equals -3, um, um, I don't know, I'd have to review the conditional stuff first.
Okay. Not a problem. So we know that what I in that one's kind of a little bit harder, so we can get to that. But what else do we have to do in this? So we know that we're gonna need to skip these, right? We can look at how we can
Yes.
do that. What else do we have to do?
We have to do the multiples of 3.
Yeah. And then if so, we're gonna print it.
pretty much.
So let's, that's all. Let's go ahead and build this out. So I'm going to say def mult of 3. It's not taking in a value. So I did the first part. Who wants to do the next part? Who wants to tell me exactly what I need to write here?
What we can do for I in range.
Okay. I might say num,
No. Oh yeah, num.
but that's fine. I or num, doesn't matter.
It will be, let's see, we're starting from, let me see, -3. No,
Sorry.
because we're going down, right? We're going down. So we'll start
Yeah.
from the -300.
Yeah. Oops. And then Kevin also said we're going to go down to 0. So he created our
Mhm.
step. Perfect. Okay, so these two taken care of. So I need to see, what do we do if, we have two kind of things, two kind of conditions. We first have create a conditional statement to see if it's a -3 or -6. The other one is to see if it's a multiple of 3. So which one do you think I should do first and why?
I think the multiples of 3,
Okay.
just because they both go into the -3 and the -6.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay. So I can say if, how would I write this?
If num
Okay.
uh equals -3.
We're focusing on the multiples of 3 right now.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
But
So yeah.
if he wants to do that, we can do the equals -3 or the
Yep.
-6. I got you, Kevin.
But wouldn't we do the and?
So
No,
and
we would do the or. That's right.
yeah, because remember, or is saying either one of these has to be true.
Right.
If I do and, that means both of them have to be true, but we know that the number
Right.
can't be -3 and another -6 at the
Right.
same
No,
time.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So what we could do is say there's a couple of ways we could approach this. I believe what we could do is our for loop. We talked about this eons ago, so I'm happy just to say it. We have a couple different things. We have break, and then does anybody remember what the other one is?
No.
So there was break or continue. What continue will do is it will not break your for loop, but it'll skip everything below that. So if we're saying continue, we're saying, cool, don't worry about anything else because we don't want to do anything. Basically, it's a skip, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could say
Right.
continue. Now we could say elif. Doesn't matter. We could have an if statement or we could have an elif. Doesn't matter. Now I need to do the multiples of 3 thing. So how would I do that?
Would it be num percent
Yep.
3
Mm-hmm.
equals, oh wait, is it equals 0?
Sorry. Yep.
Oh,
This
okay.
equals 0. No, it is equals. Because num modulo 3 is going to that is going to equate into 0 or into some number, and then I'm comparing that with 0. So if remember, equals is just a comparative. Equals is, or sorry, single equals is a declarative. We're declaring a value. equals equals is when we were comparing a value. So we're going to compare, what does this give me back with 0?
Okay.
Then I just want to print num. I think that's it.
Yeah,
I think that's
because
it. So let's see. So I'm going to say mult of 3, call this, and let's see if we get everything. Cool. We got all the way from minus 300 all the way down to -9, and we forewent 3, -3, -6. And these are all in multiples of 3.
look at that.
So it works perfect.
That just looked too easy.
I know. All right, let's make it a little bit harder then.
No, no, no.
Let's
So
make it a little
yeah,
bit harder.
We can. Go ahead.
We're gonna do one thing to make it harder. Let's say that this right now, the restriction is if they put in minus 300, cool, right? Like then it's perfect. But what if I wanted all the multiples of 3 from -900 to 0? How could I
We
change
should,
this to be dynamic to take in all negative numbers? Any negative number.
it would well, wouldn't we change the 300 to the 900 first because you said it's starting from the 900?
Yeah. But what if I wanted to create a function that was dynamic so I could pass in any number I wanted and get all the multiples of 3?
you have something in the in your parameter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe some num. Perfect. And
Right.
then what would I do now?
I would maybe substitute the num for the sum num.
Right here.
Yeah.
Remember, num is what we create in our for loop, so it's new variable, so it needs to stay there. But what is some
No,
num
no, right.
referring
So
to?
sum num would go within the range.
Yeah, exactly. Go just like this. Perfect.
I mean,
So
it's not really that
now,
harder when you think about
no, it's not. I just wanted to scare you. So now if I put it
it.
in minus 306, we still get to -9, so it still works. But if we go to the top, we see that I get minus 306, minus 303, minus 300. Now, we have a flaw in this. Can anybody think of an edge case where this would break or not work? What would happen if I did this?
If it was a positive number? Oh.
Yeah, what would happen if that happened?
Um, I probably would I probably wouldn't run
You don't think it would
or
run?
no,
Um,
I think it would run because it's equals to 0 because of the elif,
Okay,
maybe.
okay. What do you think, Kevin?
um, well, the range, it's not within the range because it's sum num and then it starts at sum num and then it goes to 0. So the sum num is negative.
Mm-hmm.
So the if any positive number is not within range.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
0, but 0 it's 0. Right? Or no?
Remember, what are the 3 things that go in this? In my
Start,
range?
stop,
It's
start,
the
stop, and a
start
step.
is
Yeah.
the what not say that again? Start.
Start
Start, stop, and a step.
and a step.
Oh, and a step. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I
So
think
if I don't put a start, where does it automatically start to? Let's say I didn't pass in some num, I just passed in this. Where does it automatically start? What's the default value for start?
0.
0, right? But we're saying now I want to, I don't want to start at 0. My middle, I have to always pass in. That's my stop, right? But if I don't pass in this third value, what does the step always default to?
1.
1.
Mhm.
1.
So if I were to run
Mhm.
this as a positive number, it would be an infinite loop. Because some num would be 306. The thing that breaks it out of this is when it gets to 0, but it would do this and then would go to 307 and 308 and 309 and 310, and it would go all the way to infinity. And so what we could do is a few different things.
Because it's kind of it's undefined.
It's not undefined. There's just, it is impossible for it to ever reach 0 because it's always going to be increasing from 306, right? Or even if you just put the number 1, right? If you think about it, I just did this and ran it. The first time, num would equal 1, right? And then it's going to say, is num equal to -3 or equal to -6? It's not. Okay, is it a modulo of 3? It's not. Or multiple of 3? It's not. Okay, it's going to go to 2, right? Because our step adds 1. And then it's going to do that. And it's going to go to 3. And so it still would print these, but it's never going to reach the stop condition because it's never going to go down. Right now, it's only going to increase all the way through infinity, right? So my computer will freeze up, it'll never stop. So we need to be aware of these things when we're making something dynamic, especially if we're going to count down to 0. So there's a couple different ways we could do it. One way we could is we could say something like if some num is greater than 0. Maybe we have some sort of value called decrement equals -1. Else decrement equals 1. And then here, or sorry, maybe I say step val. That makes more sense. Now, if I go here and I just type in step val, it's going to say, hey, if it's greater than 0, meaning that it's a positive number, well, then we want it to go down, right? All the way to 0. So let's say we put in the number, 35. Some num is going to be here. So we're going to start at 35. We're going to go down, or we're going to stop when it gets to 0. And because 35 is greater than 0, our step val is going to be -1. So every single time it's going to be decreasing. So we're guaranteed to hit 0. On the inverse, if it is -35, -35 is not greater than 0, it's less than. So step val is going to be 1. So it's going to be -35 going to 0, but it's going to be increasing by 1. Excuse me. And so this is a way that we can make sure that now it's dynamic, meaning whatever number we put in, we're going to get all the multiples of 3. So if I were to run this again, I get, from 33 down to 6. But if I put this at 35, moment of truth, I go down from 33 to 3 and 6 because that's not, -3 or -6, but it goes down to 0. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, feel free to speak up now.
Yeah, I think it kind of just confused me a little bit. I'm looking at it, but I think it's this is, I don't know. I'm just trying to. Hmm. I know that you put in the number, so I started from the 35. Not sure, well.
Okay. So let's kind of just T diagram it real quick.
Okay.
If we do sum num, I'm going to put it as SN, is 35. Right? Then we're going to do a range of 35, 0. And let's pretend that this code that we just recently wrote, let's kind of pretend that that's nothing, right? Let's do this. What is my range in this case? When I have range and I'm passing in just like this, it's saying sum num, which is in this case 35, 0, but what's my step automatically going to do? If I
It
don't
says
pass,
-1.
our step is always
Always
positive.
1.
Yeah,
Okay.
default is +1, right? And that's the default value. If we don't pass in anything, it's always going to be +1. So, okay, let's say that we enter into my for loop and I am going to enter in, and now I have this num value. And we're starting at some num, which is 35, right? Then it's going to go in and say, if num is equal to -3, it's not, so we don't have to worry about that. Or num is equal to -6, it's not, right? Cool. Elif, if num is modulo 3 is equal to 0, well, it's not. 35 is not a multiple of 3, so we're not going to print num. So we get to the end of the for loop, comes back up, and it does my step. Now this is 36. It's going to check, is 36 equal to 0? Have we reached 0? We haven't, right? So then it continues my for loop. It's going to say, is 36 equal to -3, or is it equal to -6? Neither of those are true. Then it's going to say, is it a multiple of 3? It is. So we're going to print. So I'll put P. We're going to print 36. Then once we're done, we add 1. So now it's 37. Is 37 the same as 0? It's not, right? So then we enter into my for loop, right? My stop condition has not been met.
Okay.
It's going to check, and it's going to keep doing that forever because it's always going to be incrementing. And so it will never have the chance to get to 0 because you're always adding 1,
Okay.
right? If I'm always adding 1,
Yeah.
let's say I started at 5 and I just continuously added 1, we know that that can never get to 0 because I'm always adding 1.
Understood. Okay.
So what we have to do is say, okay, first and foremost, is my number positive or negative? Or, if it's greater than 0, then we're assuming that that's positive, right? Well, we know that's positive. Well, if it's positive and the same thing that we just did, I don't need to go from 35 to 0 by 1. I need to go from 35 to 0. The way I would do that is by going -1, subtracting 1 each time. So that's what this step val is. So we're saying, okay, great. If it's positive, we know we want to be subtracting 1. So that way we can guarantee we get down to 0. Else, meaning that it's negative, right? It's either positive or negative. Else, we want to keep it at 1 because we know that -35, 0, 1. The first time, num's going to be -35. I add 1, and then it's going to be -34. I add 1, it's going to be -33. We know that has a chance to get to 0. Does that make sense?
I see what you're explaining. It just when you were saying, I was just like, how did he get it to drop when I saw the step val -1 and the step
Mhm.
val 1? That's why it kind of confused me a little bit, but
Yeah, it's
I
just
see it.
handling this step. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
You did
Okay.
make it harder. There you go.
There you go. Awesome. Any other questions on this?
No, no.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, just one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If say we were to swap the sum num and the zero, that means that we would start at 0 and end at whatever we decide to give.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that
Now the question said from this value to 0.
yeah.
And so that would be a a distinction, sorry, to make is, hey, you're saying from, do you just want all of them, or is it important that I go in a specific order,
Okay.
right? From the number that we passed in, or does it matter just, hey, from or between these numbers, give me all the multiples of 3?
Hmm.
That'd be a good distinction. But you're right, Kevin, if it wasn't this from, if it was like, just give me all the numbers between minus 300 and 0, then that would be the easiest way to do it, right? Is just put the number here. Put the number, sorry, it'd be 0 and then the number. And we'd still have to kind of figure that out. But yeah, that's another way we could do it. Any other questions, friends?
Nope, not at all.
Okie doke. Well, I
Thank
will stop the recording here, and then I will get that up tonight. And I will see you all next week.
thank you. Have a great
You're
weekend.
welcome. Have a great
All right.
weekend,
Thanks a
friends.
million. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
you too.